Close your eyes for a moment and imagine it. A warm summer evening, the air thick with the scent of freshly cut grass, and that unmistakable sound. The cheerful, tinkling jingle of an ice cream truck drifting through your neighborhood. Kids sprint out of their houses, clutching crumpled dollar bills, their laughter echoing down the street. It's the sound of joy, of nostalgia, of carefree days. But what if that jingle is a lie? What if the man behind the counter, smiling as he hands you a popsicle, is hiding something unspeakable? What if the truck itself isn't what it seems? Tonight, we're diving deep into 15 true ice cream truck horror stories, real, bone-chilling accounts from people who heard that jingle and lived to regret it. These aren't campfire tales or urban myths. These are stories from ordinary people, kids, parents, teenagers who encountered something they can't explain, something that changed them forever. Before we start, grab a blanket, lock your doors, and maybe, just maybe, rethink that craving for a late-night ice cream cone. Because after you hear these stories, you'll never hear that jingle the same way again. Let's dive in. Story 1, The Van That Never Left. Our first story takes us back to a small town in Ohio, 1987. It's a tale that's been whispered about for decades, passed down like a ghost story, but with one chilling difference: it's real. The people of Willow Lane still warn their kids, never chase the ice cream truck after dark. Melissa was 10 years old that summer, a shy kid with a love for strawberry popsicles. She remembers 1987 as the best summer of her life. Long days spent riding bikes, catching fireflies, and waiting for the ice cream truck to roll through. But this truck, it wasn't like the others. It was old, almost ancient, with rusted chrome and faded paint that made the cartoon ice cream cones on its side look like they were melting. The jingle was off too, slightly out of tune, like a music box that hadn't been wound in years. And the driver, he was a man in his 40s, maybe 50s, with a crooked smile that never reached his eyes. He'd hand out ice cream without saying much, but his gaze, Melissa said it felt like he was memorizing her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Melissa and her friends noticed something strange. The truck didn't leave. Normally, it would circle the neighborhood once or twice, sell its treats, and vanish into the twilight. But this time, it parked at the end of Willow Lane, right under a streetlight that flickered like it was on its last legs. The jingle kept playing, soft and relentless, looping over and over. The kids, fueled by curiosity and the promise of free ice cream, decided to investigate. They grabbed their bikes and pedaled toward the truck, their giggles masking the growing unease in their chests. Melissa says they got within 20 feet of the truck when the jingle stopped. Dead silence, the air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. The side window of the truck slid open with a slow, deliberate creak, and the driver leaned out. He didn't speak. He just stared at them, his smile stretching wider than it should have. Melissa says it was like he knew something they didn't, a secret that made his eyes glint in the dark. Then he raised a single finger and beckoned them closer. Something snapped in Melissa. She screamed, and the kids bolted, pedaling back to their houses as fast as they could. Their hearts pounded, their breaths came in gasps, and the silence behind them was louder than any jingle. When Melissa's dad went to check on the truck later that night, it was gone. No tire tracks in the gravel, no oil stains, no sign it had ever been there. The next day, the neighbors started talking. They'd seen the truck too, but no one could agree on what it looked like. Some swore it was white with red stripes. Others said it was a dull green. The driver, no one could describe his face. It was like their memories were blurred. Melissa's story doesn't end there. For weeks after that night, she'd wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of that jingle, faint but unmistakable, drifting through her window. She'd pull back the curtains, her heart racing, but the street was always empty. Her parents thought she was imagining it, but her little brother swore he heard it too. Years later, Melissa found this article in the town archives. It's from 1962, 25 years before her encounter. It describes a missing child, last seen near an ice cream truck that no one could trace. The description of the truck matches hers, down to the rusted chrome. To this day, Melissa refuses to eat ice cream from a truck. She moved away from Willow Lane, but she says the jingle still finds her sometimes. In dreams, in quiet moments, even in the hum of a distant car radio. And Willow Lane? The neighbors claim the truck still shows up every few years, always at dusk, always under that broken streetlight. No one knows who drives it or what it wants. That's just the first story, and we're already in deep. If you're feeling a chill, stick around, because these stories only get darker, weirder, and more disturbing. Let's move on to number 2. Story 2, The Missing Melody. Our second story takes us to a foggy coastal town in Oregon, 1993. It's about a boy named Ethan, a summer that changed his life forever, and a melody that still haunts him to this day. Ethan was 12 years old, the kind of kid who lived for adventure. He'd spend his summers exploring the dunes, collecting shells, and chasing the ice cream truck with his best friend, Tommy. But the truck that rolled into town that July was different. Its jingle wasn't the usual, "Pop Goes the Weasel" or "Turkey in the Straw." It was beautiful, almost otherworldly, like a lullaby you couldn't resist. Ethan described it as a melody that seemed to call to him specifically, pulling him toward the truck like a magnet. Ethan and Tommy would chase the truck every day, pooling their pocket change for ice pops. The driver was tall and thin, dressed in a pristine white uniform that seemed to glow in the fog. He never smiled, never spoke beyond a quiet, "Here you go." But his eyes, Ethan said they were too deep, like looking into a well that had no bottom. One afternoon, Ethan convinced Tommy to follow the truck farther than they ever had before, past the town limits, where the pavement turned to dirt and the cliffs loomed over the ocean. Ethan says the truck stopped in the clearing, and the jingle faded to silence. The driver got out, moving with a strange, deliberate grace, like he was performing a ritual. He didn't open the serving window. Instead, he walked to the back of the truck and opened the door. Ethan couldn't see inside. It was too dark, like the darkness was swallowing the light. But he felt something wrong. The air grew heavy, pressing down on his chest, and his ears started to ring. He wanted to run, but his legs felt like they were stuck in mud. Then Ethan heard it, a voice, soft and sweet, coming from inside the truck. It wasn't the driver. It was something else, something that knew his name. "Ethan, come closer." The voice was like the jingle, beautiful but wrong, like it was pulling at his soul. Tommy grabbed his arm, snapping him out of it, and they ran, stumbling through the fog, their breaths ragged. When they looked back, the truck was still there, the driver standing in the clearing, watching them with those bottomless eyes. Ethan made it home, but Tommy didn't. He'd been with Ethan that day, chasing the truck, but Ethan doesn't remember seeing him leave the clearing. Tommy vanished. The police searched the cliffs, the woods, even dragged the ocean floor, but there was no trace of him. The truck? It was gone, like it had never existed. No one else in town remembered seeing it. Not the neighbors, not the shopkeepers, not even the other kids. Ethan's parents thought he was traumatized, making it up to cope. But Ethan knows what he saw and what he heard. Ethan's family moved away a year later, but he never stopped hearing that jingle. It comes to him in dreams, in quiet moments, even in the hum of a distant radio. He says it's not just a memory. It's like the truck is still out there, waiting for him to follow it again. He keeps that cassette tape, a recording he made of the jingle that summer, but he's too afraid to play it. He's convinced that if he does, the truck will find him, and this time, it won't let him go. 2 stories in, and I'm already checking my windows at night. If you're hooked, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got 13 more stories to go, and they're only getting creepier. Story 3, The Face in the Window. Our third story brings us to suburban California, 2001, and it's one of the most unsettling accounts I've ever come across. It's about a girl named Sarah, a summer that broke her, and a face she'll never forget. Sarah was 15, a typical teenager who lived for summer break. To her, the ice cream truck was a slice of childhood she wasn't ready to let go of. Freedom, fun, and a quick escape from her boring life. She'd race out with her friends, laughing as they debated chocolate-dipped cones versus rocket pops. But one afternoon in July, something felt off. The truck that pulled into her cul-de-sac looked normal, white with red and blue swirls, a smiling clown painted on the side. But the driver was different. He was young, maybe 20s, with a smile that was too perfect, too practiced. And he was watching her. Not the other kids, not the parents, just Sarah. Sarah tried to shake it off. She took her chocolate-dipped cone and started walking home, licking the ice cream to cool her nerves. But as she glanced back at the truck, she saw something that made her freeze. In the small, rectangular window on the side of the truck, not the serving window, but a smaller one near the back, there was a face. It wasn't the driver's. It was pale, almost translucent, with wide, empty eyes that seemed to glow in the shadows, and it was staring right at her. Sarah drew this years later, trying to capture what she saw. She says it wasn't human. It wasn't even alive. It was like something was trapped inside the truck, pressed against that window, watching her with a hunger she could feel in her bones. She ran home, her heart pounding, and locked the door behind her. She didn't tell her parents. They wouldn't believe her. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard it, the jingle, soft but unmistakable, right outside her house. For weeks, the truck kept coming back. Never during the day, always at night, always parking in the same spot. Sarah's parents never heard the jingle, never saw the truck. She started sleeping with the lights on, terrified that the face would appear at her bedroom window next. She'd lie awake, listening to the jingle, which seemed to grow louder, more insistent, like it was trying to get inside her head. Then, one night, it stopped. The truck, the jingle, the face, all gone, like they'd never been there. But Sarah says she still feels those eyes on her, even now, 20 years later. Sarah's story raises Physics raises a question we'll come back to later. Was the face supernatural, or was the truck hiding a human secret? A predator? A stalker? Someone using the truck as a cover? Or was it something else entirely? Something that doesn't belong in our world? We'll circle back to these questions at the end. For now, let's keep going. This is just the beginning. Story 4, The Driver Who Knew Too Much. Our fourth story takes us to rural Texas, 1979, and it's a chilling reminder that sometimes the person handing you your ice cream knows more about you than they should. James was 8 years old, living on a farm with his grandparents in a small Texas town. The ice cream truck was a rare treat, showing up maybe once a week. Its jingle a siren call for every kid within earshot. The driver was a middle-aged man with a friendly smile and a knack for remembering names. Not just the kids' names, parents, grandparents, even people who just moved to town. James thought it was cool, like the driver was some kind of small-town superhero. But then, it got creepy. James started noticing things. The driver would say stuff like, "Your dad's working late again, huh?" Or, "That bruise on your arm looks better." Things he shouldn't know. Things James hadn't told anyone. It was like the driver was watching him, studying him. One day, as James took his ice cream, the driver leaned out the window and said something that made his blood run cold. "You should check the lock on your bedroom window tonight, Jimmy. Wouldn't want anyone sneaking in." That night, James checked the lock on his bedroom window. It was broken, the latch loose and rusted. He showed his grandparents, who fixed it the next day, but they brushed off his story about the driver. "He's just being friendly," they said. A week later, the truck stopped coming. No explanation, no trace. Years later, James found an old newspaper article in his grandparents' attic. It was from that summer, 1979, about a string of break-ins in the area. The suspect? A man who drove an ice cream truck using his route to scout houses and kids. The article didn't say if the man was caught, but it described him as unusually observant, with a knack for blending in. James still wonders how the driver knew about that lock. Was he just guessing, or was he planning something? And why did he warn James? Was it a taunt or something else? 4 stories down, and we're just scratching the surface. If you're feeling uneasy, good. That means you're paying attention. Let's keep going. Story 5, The Truck That Followed. Now we're heading to Chicago, 2010, for a story that proves ice cream trucks aren't just a small-town nightmare. They can haunt the city streets too. Lila was 19, working late shifts at a 24-hour diner in a rough part of town. She'd take the bus home around midnight, cutting through quiet residential streets to get to her apartment. One night, as she walked past a dark side street, she noticed an ice cream truck parked under a street lamp. It was odd. Ice cream trucks don't usually run that late, especially in October. The truck was old, its paint chipped, the jingle looping at a low volume. Lila ignored it and kept walking. Then she heard it move. Lila picked up her pace, her sneakers slapping the pavement. The truck kept following, always staying about a block behind, its jingle looping over and over like it was mocking her. She turned down an alley, hoping to lose it, but when she reached the other end, the truck was there, waiting. The driver leaned out the window, smiling like they were old friends. He didn't speak, just waved, his fingers moving slowly, deliberately. Lila sprinted to a gas station, called a friend, and stayed there until they picked her up. The truck was gone by the time they drove back. She reported it to the police, but they couldn't find any record of an ice cream truck operating in that area at that time. A few weeks later, Lila saw it again, parked outside her apartment building at 3 a.m., the jingle playing softly, but no driver in sight. This is the photo she took that night. It's blurry, but you can just make out the truck, or at least something that looks like one. Lila moved out of Chicago a month later. She says the worst part wasn't the truck itself. It was the feeling that it wasn't random, like it had chosen her, singled her out. And that's a theme we'll see again in these stories. The sense that these trucks aren't just roaming, they're hunting. If you're still with me, you're braver than most. Hit that like button if you're hooked. It helps keep the lights on while we dive deeper into the darkness. Let's move on to Story 6. Story 6, The Silent Truck. Our sixth story comes from a small village in New Mexico, 1983, and it's one of the strangest, most unsettling accounts I've ever come across. Rosa was 14, living in a tight-knit community where everyone knew each other's business. Ice cream trucks weren't common in her village, so when one showed up that summer, it was a big deal. But this truck was different. It was pristine, almost too clean for the dusty roads, and it never played a jingle, not a single note. Kids would just know when it was there, like they could feel it in their bones, a pull they couldn't explain. Rosa's little brother, Miguel, became obsessed with the truck. He'd run out to meet it every day, even when Rosa begged him to stay home. The driver never spoke, just handed out free ice cream with a nod, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Rosa noticed Miguel was changing. He was quieter, withdrawn, like he was sleepwalking through life. He'd stare out the window for hours, humming a tune Rosa didn't recognize. One day, she followed him to the truck, hiding behind a rusted water tank, and saw something that made her heart stop. Rosa couldn't hear what the driver said, but Miguel's expression was like he'd been erased, like his soul had left his body. She ran out, grabbed him, and dragged him home, screaming at the driver to stay away. The man didn't react, just watched her with those hidden eyes, his head tilted slightly. The truck didn't come back after that, but Miguel was never the same. He'd wake up screaming, saying the driver was standing at the foot of his bed, just watching, his sunglasses reflecting the moonlight. Rosa spent years trying to find out who the driver was, but there's no record of that truck ever existing. No registration, no sightings, nothing. Miguel grew up, but he's still haunted, still hears that tune he hummed as a kid. Rosa believes the driver was doing something to the kids, something beyond just giving them ice cream. Was it psychological, chemical, or something darker? She's still searching for answers, but the desert keeps its secrets. We're halfway through, and the stories are getting weirder, creepier, and harder to explain. If you're still here, you're in for a wild ride. Let's keep going. Story 7, The Jingle That Never Stopped. Our seventh story takes us to Florida, 1996, for a story that's as bizarre as it is terrifying. It's about a boy named Daniel, a summer that broke him, and a jingle that refused to stop. Daniel was 11, living in a quiet neighborhood just outside Miami. The ice cream truck was a daily ritual. Same time, same route, same jingle. The entertainer played on a tinny speaker. It was the soundtrack of summer, a signal to grab some quarters and run outside. But one summer, something changed. The jingle didn't stop. It played all day, all night, looping without end, echoing through the streets like a broken record. Neighbors complained, banging on doors, trying to find the source, but no one could locate the truck. It was like the sound was coming from everywhere and nowhere. Daniel's parents thought it was a prank, maybe some kid with a boombox. But Daniel wasn't so sure. One night, unable to sleep, he looked out his window and saw the truck parked across the street, its lights off, the jingle blaring from its speakers. The driver was standing outside, motionless, staring up at Daniel's window. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there for hours, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. The next morning, the truck was gone, but the jingle kept playing. Daniel started hearing it everywhere, at school, in the shower, even when he was alone in the woods behind his house. It wasn't just in the air, it was in his head, like the sound was alive, trying to tell him something. Years later, Daniel learned something chilling. His neighbor, an old man who'd lived on the street for decades, had died that summer. He'd been an ice cream truck driver in the 60s, and his favorite tune was The Entertainer. Daniel's never been able to explain it. Was it a ghost, haunting the streets with its old jingle? A hallucination brought on by stress? Or something else? Something that used the jingle as a lure? He moved away from Miami, but he still hears it sometimes. Faint, but unmistakable, like the truck is still out there, circling. 7 stories down, and I'm already double-checking my locks at night. If you're loving this, smash that like button and subscribe. We've got 8 more stories to go, and they're the creepiest yet. Story 8. The Ice Cream That Burned. Our 8th story takes us to rural Pennsylvania, 1985, and it's one that'll make your skin crawl. It's about a girl named Clara, a summer day that turned toxic, and an ice cream cone she'll never forget. Clara was 9, the youngest of 5 siblings in a big, chaotic family. The ice cream truck was a rare treat, something they could only afford when their mom had a good week at work. So when a truck showed up one sweltering August day, offering free ice cream to every kid in sight, it was like Christmas in summer. The driver was an older man, maybe 60s, with a raspy voice and a cough that sounded like he'd smoked a pack a day. He handed out vanilla cones with a grin, urging the kids to eat up quick before it melts. Clara got her cone, but something was wrong. It smelled chemical, like gasoline or paint thinner. Clara says the ice cream didn't just sting. It burned, like acid eating away at her tongue. She ran to her mom, crying, her mouth on fire. Her mom washed it out with water, but the pain lingered for hours. The other kids weren't so lucky. 2 of Clara's friends ended up in the hospital with severe chemical burns in their mouths and throats. Parents swarmed the field, but the truck was gone, vanished without a trace. The police searched the area, but there were no tire tracks, no witnesses, nothing. Clara's mom contacted the health department, but they had no record of an ice cream truck operating in the area. The hospitals couldn't identify the chemical in the kids' burns. It wasn't any known toxin. Years later, Clara found an online forum where people shared similar stories. Ice cream that made them sick, trucks that disappeared, drivers who seemed to vanish into thin air. She's convinced the driver was poisoning kids, maybe as an experiment. Maybe for some twisted reason no one can understand. But how did he get away with it? And where did he go? Clara's tongue healed, but she's never eaten ice cream since. She says the smell of vanilla still makes her gag. brings back the memory of that burning pain. Her friends recovered, but they don't talk about it, like they're afraid saying it out loud will bring the truck back. And maybe it will. 8 stories in, and I'm starting to wonder if I'll ever eat ice cream again. If you're still here, you're tougher than most. Let's keep pushing forward. Story 9 is next. Story 9, the truck at the end of the road. Our 9th story takes us to Maine, 2004, for a story that's equal parts mystery and terror. It's about a boy named Mark, a winter that chilled him to the bone, and a truck that shouldn't have been there. Mark was 16, spending the winter with his cousins in a small Maine town where snowdrifts could bury a car overnight. Ice cream trucks were a summer thing, a distant memory in January's deep freeze. So when Mark and his friends heard a jingle one night during a blizzard, they thought they were losing it. The sound was faint but clear, drifting through the storm like a ghost. Bored and curious, they bundled up, grabbed flashlights, and hiked out to find it. They followed the jingle to the end of an old logging road, miles from town where the truck was parked, its lights glowing faintly through the snow. The driver was waiting for them, standing outside the truck in a thin white jacket, like the cold didn't touch him. He didn't offer ice cream, didn't speak, just stared at them, his eyes reflecting the truck's lights like a wolf's. Mark says the air felt charged, like right before a lightning strike, heavy with something he couldn't name. Then the driver spoke, his voice low and gravelly, cutting through the wind. "You shouldn't be here." It wasn't a warning, it was a threat. The boys ran, slipping and falling in the snow, their flashlights bouncing wildly. When they looked back, the truck was gone. No tracks, no sound, nothing but fresh snow where it had been. The next day, Mark's cousin swore he saw the driver standing in his backyard, just watching, his white jacket stark against the snow. Mark never saw the truck again, but he found this in his coat pocket, a single ice cream wrapper, frozen stiff, with the words, "Sweet treats," printed in faded ink. Mark reported it to the police, but they laughed it off. Ice cream trucks in a blizzard? Come on, kid. The park rangers searched the logging road and found nothing. No tire tracks, no footprints. Mark's convinced the driver wasn't human, that the truck was hunting, drawn to the isolation of the storm. He still checks his pockets after every snowfall, half expecting to find another wrapper. 9 stories down, and I'm starting to think twice about going outside in a storm. If you're still hooked, hit that subscribe button. We've got 6 more stories to go, and they're the darkest yet. Story 10, The Children's Laughter. Our 10th story comes from Georgia, 1990, and it's one that'll haunt you long after this video ends. It's about a girl named Tara, a summer of strange sounds, and a recording she can't bring herself to destroy. Tara was 13, a curious kid with a knack for noticing details. She loved the ice cream truck, especially the way it brought the neighborhood together. Kids laughing, parents chatting, everyone united by the promise of a cold treat. But this truck was different. Its jingle wasn't just music. It was mixed with children's laughter, a chorus of giggles woven into the melody. At first, it was charming, like the sound of a playground. Then it turned creepy, the laughter growing louder, more frantic, like the kids were scared. Tara started recording the truck's jingle on her cassette player, determined to figure out why it sounded so wrong. She'd sit on her porch, the tape rolling, capturing every thought. One night, she played the tape back, and heard something that made her blood run cold. Voices, faint but clear, whispering, "Help us." They were children's voices, layered under the laughter, distorted but unmistakable. Tara played the tape for her parents, but they couldn't hear anything, just the jingle and the giggles. The next day, the truck didn't come back. Tara kept that tape for years, listening to it obsessively, trying to make sense of what she'd heard. In her 20s, she sent it to an audio engineer who confirmed there were human voices on the recording, children's voices, distorted and buried in the mix. He couldn't explain how they got there or why no one else could hear them. Tara's convinced the truck was connected to a string of missing kids in the area that summer. She spent decades searching for answers, but the tape is all she has, a fragile piece of evidence that might hold the truth. Tara still has the tape, locked in a safe she rarely opens. She's afraid to play it, afraid the voices will be louder, clearer, or worse, silent. She's even more afraid that destroying it will erase the only proof those kids existed. The truck never returned, but Tara says she still hears the laughter sometimes, faint and fleeting, like a memory she can't shake. 10 stories in, and I'm starting to question every sound I hear at night. If you're still with me, you're braver than I am. Let's keep going. Story 11 is next. Story 11, The Man Who Wasn't There. Our 11th story takes us to Colorado, 2008, for a story that's as baffling as it is terrifying. It's about a boy named Ben, a summer in the Rockies, and a driver who didn't seem to exist. Ben was 10, spending the summer with his cousins in a small Colorado town. The ice cream truck was a highlight, rolling through the park every afternoon, its jingle drawing kids like moths to a flame. But the driver gave Ben the creeps. He was tall, with a blank expression and eyes that never seemed to blink. Ben's cousin, always the bold one, swore the driver wasn't there half the time. Like, the serving window would be open, ice cream would be handed out, but no one was inside the truck. One day, Ben worked up the courage to ask the driver's name. The man just stared, his eyes like black marbles, then handed him an ice cream and said, "You'll know soon enough." That night, Ben had a nightmare about the driver standing in his room, whispering his name. When he woke up, his window was open, the curtains fluttering, and there was an ice cream wrapper on his nightstand, still cold to the touch. Ben's family moved away that fall, but he's convinced the driver was following him. He'd see the truck in random places, outside his new school in Denver, on a highway in Utah, even parked in a rest stop in Nevada. It was always the same truck, same jingle, same wrapper left behind. Ben's in his 20s now, but he still checks his windows at night, half expecting to find another wrapper. Or worse, the driver himself. Ben's cousins don't talk about that summer. They say it's bad luck, like naming the driver will summon him. Ben's tried to find records of the truck, but there's nothing. No registration, no reports, no proof it was real. He's starting to wonder if the driver was a ghost, a hallucination, or something else. Something that knew his name and wasn't done with him. 11 stories down, and I'm starting to think I'll never sleep again. If you're still here, you're a legend. Hit that like button and subscribe. We've got 4 more stories to go, and they're the creepiest yet. Story 12, The Truck That Came Back. Our 12th story takes us to Oklahoma, 1975, and it's a chilling reminder that some horrors never stay buried. It's about a girl named Linda, a truck that shouldn't have been there, and a driver who defied time. Linda was 12, living in a town where nothing ever happened. Ice cream trucks were rare, so when one showed up that summer, it was a big deal. The truck was ancient, its paint peeling, the cartoon ice cream cones on its side faded to ghosts. The driver was an old man with a limp and a yellowed smile, handing out cheap popsicles to kids who didn't care about his creepy vibe. Linda thought he was harmless until her mom saw him. Linda's mom dragged her inside and told her to stay away from the truck. When Linda asked why, her mom's voice shook. Years earlier, when she was a kid in the same town, the same driver had been arrested for trying to lure kids into his truck. He'd gone to prison, and the truck was supposed to have been scrapped. But here it was, back in town, with the same driver, who looked exactly the same, not a day older, like time had skipped him. Linda's mom called the police, but the truck was gone before they arrived. The cops checked the prison records and found something chilling. The driver had died in jail 10 years earlier, in 1965. His death certificate was on file, signed and dated. So who or what was driving that truck? Linda's mom burned sage and prayed for days, convinced the driver was a ghost, come back to finish what he started. Linda never saw the truck again, but her mom swore she heard the jingle late at night, faint and broken, drifting through the town. Linda's in her 60s now, but she still avoids ice cream trucks, still checks the faces of the drivers, looking for that yellowed smile. She's convinced he's still out there, ageless and waiting, his truck creaking through the dust. 12 stories in, and I'm starting to think some things don't stay dead. If you're still with me, you're tougher than most. Let's keep going. Story 13 is next. Story 13, The Jingle in the Woods. Our 13th story takes us to Washington, 2015, for a story that'll make you rethink camping. It's about a boy named Jake, a night in the wilderness, and a sound that didn't belong. Jake was 17, camping with his friends in the Cascade Mountains, miles from the nearest road. They were roughing it, no cell service, no GPS, just a map and a cooler full of beer. It was the kind of trip that made you feel alive, untouchable. But late at night, as the fire died down, they heard something that didn't fit. An ice cream truck jingle, clear as day, echoing through the forest. They laughed it off at first, thinking it was a prank or a weird echo from a distant town, but it kept getting closer. Jake and his friends grabbed flashlights and followed the sound, half drunk and cocky, thinking they'd find some idiot with a speaker. They hiked through the trees, the jingle leading them deeper, until they reached a clearing. There it was, an ice cream truck, its lights off, the jingle playing softly from a hidden speaker. The driver was inside, sitting motionless, staring straight ahead like a statue. Jake says the forest felt wrong, like the air was holding its breath, the animals silent. The group bolted, crashing through the underbrush, their flashlights bouncing wildly. When they looked back, the truck was gone. No tracks, no broken branches, nothing. They packed up and hiked out before dawn, their buzz long gone. Jake told the park rangers, who said it was impossible. No vehicles could get that deep into the forest, no roads, no trails. They searched the clearing and found nothing. Except this, a single ice cream wrapper, half buried in the dirt, still cold to the touch. Jake's friends don't talk about that night. They say it's cursed, like the truck marked them. Jake's tried to find the clearing again, but the forest seems to shift, hiding it. He's convinced the truck was a trap, something the forest didn't want them to find. He still camps, but he never stays after dark, never listens too closely to the wind. 13 stories down, and I'm rethinking my next camping trip. If you're still here, you're a warrior. Hit that subscribe button. We've got 2 more stories to go, and they're the darkest yet. Story 14, The Truck That Knew Your Name. Our 14th story comes from Arizona, 1999, and it's one that'll stick with you long after the video ends. It's about a girl named Emily, a driver who knew too much, and a mystery that's still unfolding. Emily was 11, a shy kid who kept to herself. She loved the ice cream truck, but she was cautious, always watching from a distance before approaching. The driver that summer was different. He wasn't just friendly, he knew her. Not just her name, but her favorite flavor, mint chocolate chip. Her birthday, April 12th. Even the name of her dog, Sparky. Emily thought it was cool at first, like he was magic. Then it got scary. Emily's parents were freaked out. They confronted the driver, demanding to know how he knew so much. He just smiled, tipped his cap, and drove off, the jingle fading into the heat. The next day, Emily's dog, Sparky, went missing. They searched for days, putting up flyers, calling shelters. A week later, Sparky came back, unharmed but spooked, with an ice cream wrapper tied to his collar. The wrapper had a note scribbled on it. "Missed you, Emily." The truck never came back, but the notes kept coming. Emily started getting letters. Unsigned, no return address, postmarked from different cities. They described things only the driver could know. What she wore to school, what she ate for lunch, the song she hummed in the shower. Emily's family moved twice, but the letters followed, always with the faint smell of vanilla. She's in her 30s now, and she still gets them, 1 or 2 a year, the handwriting unchanged, the paper always cold. Emily's tried to trace the letters, but the postmarks lead nowhere. Small towns, big cities, even a remote village in Alaska. The police can't help. There's no evidence, no fingerprints, just words on paper. Emily's convinced the driver is still out there, watching her, waiting. She keeps the letters in a locked box, hoping one will have a clue, a mistake, anything to end it. But deep down, she's afraid he's not human, that he'll never stop. 14 stories in, and I'm starting to think some secrets follow you forever. If you're still with me, you're a legend. 1 more story to go. Let's finish strong. Story 15, The Truck That Wasn't There. Our final story takes us to New York, 2020, and it's the perfect way to end this chilling journey. It's about a guy named Alex, a late-night walk, and a truck that vanished into thin air. Alex was 22, a bartender working late shifts in Brooklyn. He'd walk home after closing, cutting through empty streets to clear his head. One night, as he passed a narrow alley, he heard an ice cream truck jingle, sharp and clear despite the hour. It was weird. Trucks don't run at 2 a.m., especially in a residential area. Curious, he followed the sound, his phone ready to record. The truck was parked in the alley, its lights off, the jingle coming from a speaker he couldn't see. The serving window was open, but no one was inside. Alex says the air felt wrong, like it was vibrating, buzzing in his teeth. He took a step back, and the jingle stopped. The silence heavier than the sound. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow and deliberate. He spun around, but the alley was empty, just shadows and trash. When he turned back, the truck was gone, not driving away, not hidden in the dark. Gone, like it had never been there. But on the ground, Right where the truck had been was a single ice cream cone, melting into the pavement, the wrapper still cold. Alex posted about it online, and the responses flooded in. Dozens of people with similar stories. Trucks that appeared and vanished, jingles that played with no source, drivers who didn't seem human. Some said they found wrappers too, always cold, always with the same faded sweet treats logo. Alex's photo went viral, but no one could explain it. He's convinced the truck was a warning, a glimpse of something we're not supposed to see. He still walks home late, but he avoids alleys, and he never follows a jingle. Alex's story is the most recent, but it feels like the oldest, like it's connected to every story we've told tonight. Is it a ghost, a glitch, or something else? Something that uses the jingle to lure, to watch, to hunt? We may never know, but one thing's clear. The next time you hear that jingle, you might want to stay inside. And there you have it, 15 true ice cream truck horror stories, each one a window into a world we don't fully understand. From vanishing trucks to sinister drivers to things that might not be human at all, these stories remind us that the things we love, the jingle, the joy, the nostalgia, can hide the darkest secrets. They're not just stories, they're warnings, etched into the lives of the people who lived them. So, what do you think? Are these coincidences, hallucinations, or proof that something's out there, circling our streets, waiting for the right moment? Maybe it's a mix of all three. Human predators, restless spirits, and things we can't name. I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you've got your own ice cream truck story, share it. It might just make it into a future video. Before we go, let's talk about what ties these stories together. Each one has a jingle, a truck, and a driver, or something posing as one. But there's something else, something harder to pin down. The feeling of being chosen, watched, targeted. In every story, the victim felt like the truck was there for them, like it knew their fears, their secrets. That's what makes these stories so terrifying, not just the events, but the sense that they're personal, deliberate, like the truck is hunting with purpose. Maybe it's psychological, the way our brains turn a creepy driver into a monster. Maybe it's supernatural, a force that uses the jingle as a lure, like a spider's web. Or maybe it's both. Human evil amplified by something older, hungrier. Think about it. Ice cream trucks are everywhere, in every town, every summer. They're so familiar, so innocent, that we don't question them. But what if some of them aren't what they seem? What if the jingle is a signal, a call to something we're not ready to face? Here's my challenge to you. Next time you hear an ice cream truck, listen closely. Is the jingle right? Or is it off? Warped, like it's hiding something? Look at the driver. Is he watching you a little too long, smiling a little too wide? Check the truck. Does it look too old, too clean, too wrong? And if you feel that pull, that urge to follow, don't. Stay where you are. Because once you chase that jingle, you might not come back. If you made it through all 15 stories, you're a true horror fan, and I salute you. Hit that like button if you're creeped out, subscribe if you want more, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the darkness. We've got more true horror stories coming, from haunted houses to cursed objects to things that stalk the night. Trust me, they're just as chilling as these. Until next time, stay safe, lock your doors, and maybe, just maybe, skip the ice cream truck for a while. You never know who's driving or what's waiting inside.